Why should we stop fighting ghosts and dragons? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods talking about, improving your life one small step at a time. I think that a majority of my life, I have fought ghosts and dragons. What does that mean? Things that don't really exist. They don't really exist. There's no ghosts, there's no dragons, and yet we spend our times fighting them off. But primarily what I really saw were other people who spent a good amount of time fighting ghosts and dragons in their lives. I had one person who thought their ex-husband was going to jump out of the bushes every time they left the front door. They imagined that this person was sitting in their house plotting how to destroy them. Now, sometimes it happens, but most times it doesn't happen. And what we found out later, he wasn't even thinking about her. We see people who worry about these problems, assumptions, things that we're doing, and it brings on anxiety. It catastrophizes. It causes to overthinking. I think about like middle-aged villages, and you always see those movies, right? They're fake, but the idea is they had this whole arsenal of weapons that were there to fight dragons. There were no dragons, but long spears. And they expended energy as a village preparing for what they would do when the inevitable day happened when dragons would come their way. And it can be good if it also prepared, let's say, that town for being prepared the next time an invader came through. We prepared, we trained, we made it more fun. It was full of dragons. I remember someone was talking about like household preparedness. I think it was the government that was doing this plan, and they did it in light of zombie apocalypses. What do you need to have in your house? Water, some extra food, a little bit of cash, some kind of can opener, because what if you bought all canned food to save you from the apocalypse and you didn't have a can opener? That kind of thing. And so it's fun if it causes us to do something beneficial, worthwhile. But on the other side of it, most times it's not fun. Most times the things that we're fighting for are just emotional reactivity, negativity. And it opens us up, I think, for a lot of ways to start damaging ourselves and also stealing what energy we could be putting towards doing something good in our lives. Now we're catastrophizing. Or the other way, there are some real dangers in our lives. There are some things that we have to take care of. And now instead of taking care of the real things, we're taking care of things that just don't even exist. And by the time we get to the part where we have to take care of the real thing, we're wiped, And so the idea is that if we fight these things that are going on in our head, arguing with imaginary people, having this war with something that's not there, you're going to find that worries and stress are going to start destroying your health, your mental health, and like I said, preventing you, because we can only say yes to so many things in our lives. And if we're saying yes to the ghosts and the dragons, we are not saying yes to fighting off the things that really do matter. So I have ghosts in my own machine. I'm better at it now than I used to be when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I did not see a way out in my life. I was stuck in an awful job. I had 3 awful jobs, and I was barely making ends meet. I had friends on one side of me saying, Jill, just quit some of your jobs and go on income help. You can get rid of your roommate. They'll give you a housing coupon. They will get you more food, and they will help you with all these subsidies. You'll be better off if you take government help instead of working all these jobs. That felt like a trap. It was a trap. Then I had other people on the other side were like, try harder, work harder. And I couldn't pay my bills. I was stressed out about it. I could barely get through all my bills being paid. I wasn't able to save money for my retirement. And it was just stressing me out. I have to say that after all these years of being away from that, whenever something comes in, I just paid my property taxes just a few days ago. I don't know why. It makes my heart race. I think I still have this residual fear that what if I go to write that check for my property taxes and the money's not there? I know the money's not there. I checked. But now I have this visceral reaction. I'm fighting not only a ghost in my life, I'm fighting an old ghost in my life, something that hasn't been true for me for a really long time. And you create worst case scenarios. You think about it too in your work life. Well, what if I get laid off? What if I think about retiring and the economy tanks like it did before, and now I'm in trouble? What if what if my husband, my boyfriend, my friend, they're really thinking ill of me. They're going to ditch me. They're leaving me. They're mad at me, and we think we can mind read. We think we can read another person's mind and know what it is they're thinking about. And so we catastrophize with people as well. And instead of trying to win in our life, in our future goals, we're trying to win against an imaginary fear that never existed and probably never will exist. And I think, it has a lot to do with, the wiring that goes on in our brains. We're built for detecting threats. We're supposed to detect threats. There's a whole good book out there about fear, and it was talking about how you listen to your intuition about fear. That if you see a dark alley and it gives you pause, like maybe I shouldn't walk alone in that dark alley, particularly at nighttime, it's a good thought. That system, that wiring is helping you to protect yourself. So I don't want to say that all fear or all anxiety or all uncomfortableness is bad, but instead you have to split it out. Because if you have unrealistic fears, like my friend who thought her ex-husband was waiting every moment to jump out of a bush and attack her, he didn't care about her. He never even gave her a second thought. And when he died, he gave her no second thought. It was never about her, but yet she lived years of anxiety, not wanting to leave her house, wondering, what was going to be the next shoe to drop. And the truth of the matter was there was never a shoe to drop. So I think as long, like I said, if it's realistic, if there's a good reason to be afraid, if it prepares you for something better, like the zombie apocalypse prepares you to have a little extra water, cash, canned food in your house, great. That's great. But when it sits there and paralyzes you, then that's when it's going to cause, stress, anxiety, fear. It'll lead you to losing your life, where you will just sit in anguish inside of your own house and never leave because you're so afraid of something like that. Or you're so afraid of getting rejected by other people, you never even go out and meet other people, befriend other people. And so you also have to distinguish, like I said, how realistic it is, what's the likelihood that it's going to happen, and then is it this will never happen, or this will not happen now, or this will not yet happen. Maybe it will happen, but not right now. And that will help you kind of put it into the right, I guess, pocket. These cognitive distortions feed that flight or fight syndrome inside of you. And you might laugh at fortune tellers. You might laugh at astrology. You might laugh at these systems that are, out there to try to predict what's going to happen in our lives. And yet we do that based on less evidence. And again, wasted energy, missed opportunities based on what your fear is doing. You won't go outside. You're not actually fixing your life, like going out and getting a new job that's better, because you're so busy fighting ghosts that will never happen. You strain your relationships because have you ever done that? Where you think that other person is thinking something about you, or, they're mad at you. They're secretly mad at you, and you bring it up and it causes a real fight. There was no real fight until you brought this up, because we think we know what other people are thinking. And like I said, emotional exhaustion, burnout, and you start to get disconnected from reality. And so the very first step, I think, besides analyzing it, like how likely is this? Is this ever going to happen, never going to happen, or not yet going to happen? We have to catch ourselves in this. Is this something that's actually happening right now? Do I have evidence it's happening right now? Has this happened in the past? Maybe that person who's hiding in the bushes waiting to jump out, was there ever a person? Was he ever in the bush trying to jump out, and that one time we got away? Well, then get a restraining order. Or is this something I'm inventing? Is this something I'm inventing? And notice when you hear your brain's doing things about what if or always. Person always is against me. No, they're probably not. That person never is by my side. Good things never happen to me. I'm always bad with my bills. As soon as you start getting into those kinds of words, those might be keys to you that you are going down this path. And so one of the easiest ways that you can do is you start labeling it. You start labeling what it is, this imaginary fight. And I heard one person call that a name. So then they say, yep, that thing is right here. Gave it a name, like Betsy's at the door, meaning the thing that I'm afraid of that will never happen is at the door. I even have heard of people calling things like inactivity. There was this guy who was a nerd like me, you're on the couch all the time, and he had created cartoons, and he called it the blurg. The blurg is the thing that wants him to stay sitting on the couch playing video games. So it helps to name these things funny names. So we go, oh, there it is. There's Betsy. Betsy is at the door, and I'm going to lock her out. Take a pause, do a reality check, maybe even if you're into journaling and writing it out, and then reframe it. I don't need to spend any more time defending myself from a dragon. I don't need to spend any more of my time fighting ghosts. And if that's the way you can get yourself out of it, you have to keep reframing it until you will start believing it. That when I reframe it, I'm just fighting ghosts. I'm just fighting ghosts right now. Nope, not doing it. And it'll get better. And then if you're a person of faith, Matthew 6:34 even says, let tomorrow worry about itself. Today's has enough worries. There's enough worries out there that are real that you don't have to start inventing new ones. And there's other ways, people, use stoicism. I'm big into stoicism. Epictetus said that we suffer more from our imagination than reality. There you go. We hear that noise in the house. We hear someone whispering and we think, oh, what'd you just say about me? And, that's the idea. The other thing is I like to think about statistics. I'm a math girl. So what exactly are the probabilities that I don't suddenly have money in my bank account to pay my property taxes? Yesterday I had it, but now instantaneously the money's gone and I don't have money to pay my property taxes. Probably very low, right? So I try to talk myself out of these things using math. The chances are that particular thing is going to happen very low. And, you can also understand this is my amygdala. And the amygdala can't tell the difference between imaginary threats and real ones. And so your body reacts exactly the same way. You find yourself reacting to a ghost or a dragon, and it doesn't make it real. It does not mean that it's a real thing just because your body is having a reaction. What it means is your body's meant to do that. It's out there trying to protect you. It's overdoing it, and then use the reframing. It's that idea of tilting at windmills, like, Don Quixote, right? Where it's just getting spiraled up to where something imaginary, now you're going out there and fighting it with a lance. So you don't have to fight every fight that crosses over into your mind. You never have to brace for things that are never really going to happen. And the real enemy in these situations, unfortunately, is us. That friend you think is plotting against you? Probably not. That bank account that suddenly got emptied? Probably never happened. The person that's hanging out in the bush? He probably isn't really actually thinking about you at all. And so you can, like I said, as soon as, if something makes you do something good, like you're worried that someone is out in the bush hiding at you, maybe you get rid of the bush. Maybe you get a light outside. There, that's a positive thing that you did that has more benefits than you fighting ghosts and dragons, and then be done with it. So you want to take one small step at a time to get away from fighting all of these dragons. That's the idea. Now, one or two ideas beyond what I just gave you of what you can do to get away from this overthinking, replaying old scripts, replaying old stresses, preparing for things to be rejected before you even took the first step in actually doing the thing. Oh, I'm probably just never going to get the job anyway. Why should I bother applying? Now you're fighting a dragon. You haven't even been born yet. And so ways that you can get away with it is the idea that you can start, like I said, first of all, by journaling. Find out how often you're right. I mean, that's the thing about journaling is that sometimes when we're in these fairly stressful moments, we forget how often we're right or wrong. Write them down. Write them down and say, did this ever come true? Nope, that never came true. That never happened to me. Again, so like I said, you're going to analyze it. You're going to label it. Notice when you're using those extreme catastrophizing words. Write it out, journal it. Take small steps. Take a deep breath. Ask a grounding question. Say it out loud. Sometimes imaginary dragons work better when we're just thinking of them in our head. Gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. But as soon as you say, yeah, my best friend is probably plotting against me and really secretly hates me, now you realize how silly you sound. And so that's the idea, is that you can say these words out loud and suddenly it makes less sense. Or say just the words, I don't need to be fighting a ghost today. I have enough good things to do for what's real. And then the next step is to focus on what's real. Instead of worrying about this imaginary emptied bank account, maybe you should just put a couple extra, bucks in a savings account so you're less stressed about it. There's a good thing you can do that will ease your stress, like cutting out the bush in the front yard, putting in an extra light, maybe getting a Ring camera. A practical step that you can do so that you can let go about what hasn't happened, what will never happen, and will probably never, ever happen. Today has enough worries of itself. Don't start fighting tomorrow's worries. And the nice thing, like I said, if you do journal, you'll start to realize how many of these dragons and ghosts ended up being real. You'll start to realize how much you've grown when you're no longer fighting them. You're no longer listening to them. And you'll just try to imagine one imaginary ghost every day that you would have fought in the past that you're just not even going to engage anymore. Name it and then be done with it. Be done with it right then and there. That'll help you start making some progress in fighting imaginary things. Everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate watching, listening, however you're getting this. I hope that you know that you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Let me know if something's going on with you. I'm happy to pray for you. I'm happy to do a topic if something is bogging you down. I'm trying to go through a lot of the things that ended up tangling me up in my life. And getting rid of the ghost, boy, that moved my life forward. Thanks so much. Have a great day.